So is it possible to build a barndominium for under $100 a square foot? Hey, it's something I know we see a lot in the Facebook groups and questions that are floating around the barndominium community. And today we're going to delve into the actual figures, costs, misconceptions, myths around whether or not you can build a barndominium for under $100 a square foot. So, of course, I'm John, one of your Barndo bankers, and I'm going to break this down into 3 categories for you to really help explain that while you're looking through, maybe you put a post out there like, hey, how much does it cost to build a barndominium in my area? And all of a sudden you get a flood of answers back and people are providing all these different ranges and like, of course you can, and like, no way, you're out of your mind, you're crazy. And what we're going to do is we're going to dissect all the information that can go into those replies so that you can begin to see kind of what information is being provided. So, because a lot of folks are really well-intended and they're trying to give good direction, but these are things for you to consider. And if you stick around to the end of this video, I'm going to show you how, if you're looking for accurate information to try to get a range without actually going and getting bids yourself on every single line item or as having a builder provide something for you, that there is a way that you can get accurate information that will give you some ranges, at least to give you a concept of which direction you should go into, you know, whether you should be looking at this now or projecting in the future, kind of giving your overall plans. Okay, so let's dive in. Let's talk first of all about how cost per square foot is talked about in the barndominium community. Because with a traditional, we'll call it conventional build, a lot of times your cost per square foot is really being focused on your heated living space, okay? So for example, if I have, and we're just gonna use some hypothetical numbers right now, so it's easy math for me, okay? That way I can do it on the fly for you. But if we were talking about a $400,000 build, and you've got 2,000 square feet in living space, then your conventional build, what they're quoting you then at this is $200 a square foot, okay? So that's how it's typically done. Now, when it comes to the barndominium community, a lot of times what they're talking about is not the 2,000 square foot that we're seeing here, but we're seeing this entire footprint. So we call it cost per total footprint. And in a case of the barndominium, a lot of times you'll get a larger unfinished area. So your barn, garage, shop is a larger area. Maybe it's 1,000, 2,000 square feet. So again, for ease of mathematics while I'm with you, so I can do quick math in my head, we're going to use the same example. We're going to say 2,000 square foot of living space, and we're going to say 2,000 square foot of unfinished space. So we've got a total building that's 4,000 square feet. Okay, so real quick on your math, I want you to take a peek. If we're talking about $200 a square foot in conventional builds, if we now talk barndominium language, where a builder may be quoting you by total footprint, you can see real quick that if it's $400,000 build with 4,000 square feet, all of a sudden the math now works out to $100 per square foot. And we actually saw that recently on a transaction we just did. It was pretty close to this setup with about a 4,000 square foot total footprint, where the building contract came in just a little over 400. I think it was in probably like the 420, 430 range. So that builder, turnkey, was building that home for $111 per square foot when we worked out the math. So in that realm, when we start talking about the differences, that can influence cost per square foot quotes dramatically. So you got to be aware of that. Now, talking about, I just gave you an example of a build in my area. So I'm in Michigan, mid-Michigan. One of the biggest impacts that can influence building costs, of course, and I think pretty much everyone's aware, but it's nice to talk about, is just pure location. You know, my build cost here in mid-Michigan is going to be a lot different than, let's say, in Bozeman, Montana, or somewhere out on one of the coasts of, let's say, New York or California. Okay. Matter of fact, it doesn't even have to be cross country. It can be by location, county, or within a state. So, for example, we do a lot of work up in northern Michigan with barndominium builders, and we see about a 20 to 25% cost differential in parts of mid-Michigan compared to upper Michigan. And a lot of those location impacts that influence your building costs are things like, availability of builders or subcontractors, what expectations are. Sometimes we're in areas, I've got 2 different counties that I work in, where expectations are higher. Builders are used to charging more, so their quotes are higher. And you go over to the next county and all of a sudden things drop by 10, 20, sometimes even 30%. I mean, it's a big difference. So location has a big impact there. It's also upon, accessibility to supplies. Do we have to ship material? Do they have material readily available? And is that the cost to build the actual hard material, is it more expensive in the area that you're in? And then also zoning codes, municipalities, just overall building codes can impact what it takes to build in the cost per build in your particular area too. So you really have to pay attention to the location and of where you're building compared to what you may be seeing online. Next, we're going to go into kind of some of the individual impacts too that can affect your cost to build. We talked about broad locations, but it can be very site specific as well. So, when you have site preparation, you may have a lot of trees you need to be cleared. That can raise your cost of construction. Maybe it's your soil conditions that impacts your foundation or your concrete slab. There can be things about as far as utility availability. We had a transaction earlier this year where utility getting to run just the power to the property was going to cost like $30,000 and was almost a deal killer for the people looking to build, because 30 grand on top when they were budgeting 4 to 5. That was a big shocker for them. So your individual site location can have a huge impact on building costs alone. After that, we get into finishes, things like complex roof lines, exterior finishes. For example, my son built his barndominium out of steel. My exterior finish, when I did mine, I built it out of hardy board. So there was a difference in the cost of the finish. Insulation, we see a lot of things on barndominiums talking about insulation. Are we talking about like standard old bat insulation? Are we talking a really dense a high quality spray foam? Those can impact things. Obviously, the finishes you put into your home, so it can have a tremendous impact. One thing that I always compare is my son, when he builds his barndominium, they have beautiful natural stone tops, countertops. I built when we did ours. We did a butcher block, really basic cabinets from one of the big box stores, and butcher block countertops. We finished our own. We did the whole kitchen for a couple grand. I mean, it was a huge difference between their custom cabinets, natural beautiful stone countertops. So your finishes can have also a dramatic impact on the cost per square foot. Okay, now we're going to move into the last piece, and this is pretty dramatic. We see a lot of this inside the barndominium community, but when you're building your barndominium, there's different ways to build. We actually talk about we see 5 different options or ways to build your barndominium. One overview is that people usually say, well, we're either going to hire a builder or we're going to do it ourselves. But I'm going to break it down a little bit because you actually have some variations inside there. Again, kind of common sense, but of course you can hire a builder, they do it all, you get the keys and you move in. But there's a lot of folks too, especially in the barndominium community, we'll see this, where they'll hire a builder and the builder will allow them to do a little bit of work. So maybe they're handy with a paintbrush or maybe some finished trim. So they'll do a couple items to help shave off some costs, and the builder kind of incorporates that into their project. The next step after that, what we'll see a lot of times is people that want to be their own general contractor. So they're not really going to swing a hammer, do the work. They're just going to coordinate the project. They're going to be like their own project manager, their own GC. So that would be option number 3. And then option number 4 is where you are your own GC, you're managing the project, but then you're also going to do some of the work. You are going to get involved in, maybe, hang the exterior siding. Maybe you're going to, put your cabinets up. Maybe you're in the trades and you're going to pull wire. So all those types of things, now you got a variation. And then finally are the people that I think are really brave, and there's some leaders in the barndominium community that do a great job of providing a lot of insight and support. to this community, but it's the folks that do everything themselves, the complete DIYer. And I give them a ton of kudos because I don't have the courage to do it myself, never have. I've GC'd my own projects, been involved a little bit with swinging the hammer, but never done the whole thing. So those folks that are out there, and if you're one of those that are doing it, kudos to you, congratulations, and you are going to see some cost savings because every time you hit one of those different thresholds, going all the way from hiring a builder to doing it yourself, you're going to see potential reductions in cost. So I'll just give you some rough examples of kind of what I see from an overview. This is again a very wide range, but we did a survey last year of general contractors in the state of Michigan, and what we were seeing is that your general contracting fees were running anywhere between kind of 10 to 20%. Again, there's outliers, there's a little less, a little more, but on average 10 to 20%. So again, if we go back to this type of scenario here, where we have a $400,000 build, if you save 10 to 20%, on the low end, you're gonna save 40 grand. It's pretty substantial savings if you're doing it yourself. So now all of a sudden your build costs are down to 360. You can see, again, if we're looking at this in barndominium terms, now we're underneath the $100 per square foot because we're at a 4,000 square foot build with 360. Again, these are rough numbers. I'm not saying that this is actually what it costs to build a Barndo. I'm giving this for calculation purposes. But there's certainly some savings that go into that. Now, of course, if you go to the next level and you start doing your work yourself, when a line item gets quoted inside a building contract, it's going to have material and labor. So if you're doing the work, you are going to save off of that, and it's going to shave those costs. So if you get down, let's say you knock $60,000 off the cost of labor. Maybe you framed it yourself. You're hanging the exterior siding. You're putting the roof on. You're doing all this extra work. Maybe you shave an extra 60 grand, and now you're down to $300,000. So a $300,000 build with 4,000 square foot, you're talking about $75 per square foot. That's amazing. And whether or not you can do it is going to be a function of all these combination of things: the location, your actual site, the finishes that you select, and things you put into it. How you actually build a Barndo, if you do it all yourself or if you hire a builder. So all those things go into impacting it. Now, the other thing I would say, and we don't talk a lot about, but it's the opportunity cost, of course. We've got some people who, if you were to be your own general contractor, do the work yourself, you got to go out and have the tools. You've got to lease the equipment if you don't have it. You got to take time off of work or do it on the weekends. So there's trade-offs to all this stuff, right? I don't ever make any judgments if something's good or bad. I'm just saying what I like to do is point out the things that I've seen over my 30 years of experience and working, doing things myself, where I've built my own homes. When we built our barndominium, when Spencer built his, I did mine with a builder friend of mine. He used his with a great builder here in Michigan that he hired turnkey, and the builder did everything, did a beautiful project. So there's all these variables that go into it. Nothing's right or wrong. You got to decide for yourself. Now, here's the reveal, okay? Here's what I want to share with you. One way, rather than pulling stuff off of, general Facebook groups or Reddit or things that are out there where there's general information, where you may not have the context, all the details of this information, one thing you can do is, we call it the Barndo Banker Survey. So we're actually putting together a survey for ourselves through the network of barndominium lenders that we are aware of, so that we have an idea of what things look like across the country. But you can do this in your own area. If you're thinking of borrowing money for your barndominium, you can reach out to your lender and you can ask them, hey, what are you seeing for contract costs? Because the difference with what we see is we are seeing like hundreds of contracts come through. So over a year, we may see, a lot of different types of variables of bills, costs, how they're being done, and that gives us a range, so we actually know what's being quoted. And then from there, if a banker can share you like, hey, we're seeing kind of like, $225 to $250 on our cost to builds. Well, now all of a sudden you can do the math. You can take $200 a square foot times 4,000. That kind of build. If it's this parameter is an $800,000 build. if they're saying, hey, we're seeing contracts come in at $400,000, and you can ask them, well, what kind of square footage? You can, reverse engineer it. You can do the math yourself, okay? So it's a great way for you to be able to really get some accurate information from almost like a third party, but with information, because banks are going to verify the information, right? They are going to see, like, they have to know the actual number that they're working with, so they can get some a better idea, and you can have a broader scope. It's not just skewed, because bankers typically will work with multiple different builders like we do. We've got builders all across the state of Michigan, versus calling one or two builders and they're going to quote you exactly what they're at. So I hope that makes sense, and I hope it gives you a lot of direction on what that looks like. Okay, so hey, listen, if you want more information like this, we do offer additional information. We've got a free overview of more information, like the 5 big myths, 3 simple steps to building barndominium, on projectbarndo.com. Visit that. There's great information there. If you want to step it up, get a little more detailed with information we've got on there. We've got some paid guides that you can pick up as well, but some great free information that you can go to. All you have to go do is click on projectbarndo.com, and we'll have even more information available for you. Until the next issue, this is John, your Barndo banker. Take care.